What happens when an elderly man refuses to put his paralyzed wife in a care facility? His own son calls him mentally unfit. But what this old man does next turns the entire situation upside down in the most unexpected way. Let me ask you something right off the bat. Have you ever woken up at the exact same time every damn night for weeks? No alarm, no noise, just your eyes snapping open in the dark like some invisible clock is wired into your brain? Well, I do. 3:27 a.m. sharp, every single night. And no, it's not just an old man thing. That's what they love to tell you. The doctors, the kids, the neighbors. You're 73, Frank. It's just age. Please. That morning, like the others, I sat on the edge of the bed, listening. My wife, Elsie, was breathing, barely. Shallow, rattling breaths. It was like sleeping beside a fading radio station, cutting in and out. 2 years since her stroke, and she hadn't walked since. I'd gotten used to wiping her mouth, feeding her pills, reading her psalms she couldn't answer to. And I loved her for it. Don't give me that look. You don't spend 50 years with someone and leave just because they forget your name. That's not love. That's leasing a companion. I signed for ownership. So that morning, like clockwork, I got up and made her tea. Chamomile with honey, same as always. I turned the TV on low, let her listen to old country gospel, and brushed her hair while she slept. It was matted again. That always bothered me. Elsie was proud of her silver hair. Right after I laid her blanket over her feet and kissed her forehead, the front door burst open. Here comes the storm. "Dad, you can't keep doing this." Doug, my son, 61 years old and still hasn't figured out how to talk like an adult. Following him, surprise, surprise, Brenda, my daughter-in-law, human mouth with legs. "You're gonna break your back lifting her like that. It's not safe," Doug barked. "She's my wife," I said, still calm. "I've carried her longer than I carried you." He didn't like that. Brenda rolled her eyes. "This is elder abuse. To yourself. You're not fit to care for her. It's time we looked into a facility." That word, facility. It's like saying, "We're going to bury your marriage alive and ship it to a warehouse with name tags." "No," I said flatly. Doug's lips tightened like he'd just bit into a lemon. "You don't get to say no anymore, Dad. You're not thinking clearly. You're sleep-deprived. You're confused." And just like that, my kindness, my decision to care for the woman I'd promised to love in sickness, became evidence of my mental decline. "You think I'm confused?" I asked. "Son, I remember when you peed in a bucket at Boy Scout camp because you were too scared to walk 50 yards to the outhouse." Brenda gasped. Doug turned red. This isn't about me." "Of course not. It's never about them when they're wrong." That afternoon, I found myself sitting in the kitchen, staring at a bowl of soup I'd made but couldn't bring myself to eat. Elsie slept in the other room. Peaceful, at least. Brenda thought I couldn't hear her whispering on the phone. "He's unstable," she said. "Rambling, talking to Elsie like she's a child. I'm serious. He might hurt her." That's when I realized it wasn't just a misunderstanding anymore. This was a plan. A slow, polite, well-dressed little coup. And the worst part? They thought they were helping me. You ever feel your own house turning into a cage? Because that day, with every step I took to check the locks, pour the meds, answer the doorbell, I felt the walls leaning in. That night, I woke again. 3:27 a.m. But this time, I sat up differently. My hands were shaking, but not from age. From rage. From betrayal. And something else. I had started counting. What happened next changed everything. You don't want to miss how this unfolds, especially when the people closest to him push things even further. Let me make something clear. The worst kind of betrayal isn't a punch in the face. It's a whisper behind your back that you hear anyway. The morning after Brenda's little phone call, yeah, the one where she, oh so sweetly labeled me unstable, I woke up and felt something off. No, not in my joints, in the air. The kind of heaviness you feel before a tornado touches down. I walked into the kitchen to find Doug at the table. Not drinking coffee, not looking at his phone, just waiting. The kind of waiting you do before delivering news you know will piss somebody off. "We've made a decision," he said. And there it was. We, not I, not Mom would want. No, we, as in he and Brenda, the Bonnie and Clyde of unsolicited family planning. She's moving into Maplewood next week. I stood there, blinking. Excuse me? Maplewood, the assisted living center. We already met with the director. It's clean, safe. You'll still be able to visit. I didn't sit down. I didn't even breathe for a second. You're not moving your mother into a goddamn warehouse. It's not a warehouse, Dad. It's a licensed facility with full-time medical staff. I leaned on the counter. You mean strangers who wipe her mouth for a paycheck and forget her name the next day? Doug stood up, too. We were face to face now. You're being unreasonable. You're being a coward. That hit him, but only for a second. Then Brenda's voice came in from the living room. Frank, this isn't up for debate. You're not well. You wake up in the middle of the night pacing, talking to yourself. We're doing what's best. What's best? I've learned that phrase is almost always followed by an act of cruelty, wrapped in bubble wrap. It's what people say when they're about to drop a hammer and don't want to hear it make a sound. That day, I didn't say much. I went about my routine, made tea for Elsie, played her favorite gospel records, read her the same dog-eared copy of Little Women I'd read her during chemo 30 years back. And you know what? She smiled. She held my wrist. Her hand shook. But her eyes? They still had fire. Even if her mouth forgot the words, her soul remembered the melody. I'm telling you, that woman was still home. She wasn't gone, no matter what Doug wanted to believe. She was just quieter, like a radio on low volume. But she was there. I spent the afternoon packing up my tools in the shed. For what? I don't know. Maybe to feel like a man again. At one point, I caught myself staring at the old rusted wrench I used when Doug was a teenager. He had a busted bike chain once, cried like someone shot him. I fixed it. No applause. No thanks. Just a ride around the block, and a forgotten moment. Well, I remembered. By evening, Doug was still in the house, talking on the phone, making plans, acting like I was just a background character in my own life, like I was the elderly extra in a made-for-TV movie where he was the noble caretaker. That night, I didn't wake at 3:27. I was already up. I sat on the porch, staring at the moon, counting seconds in my head. My legs ached. My chest felt tight, not from fear, from restraint. I had so many words pressing at my throat, none of them polite. I heard footsteps. Brenda. She sat beside me with the stiff grace of a person pretending to care. Frank, she said, voice dipped in faux concern syrup. This isn't personal. You've done your best. But it's time to let go. Let go? Of what, exactly? Of dignity? Of love? Of 47 years of marriage? She touched my hand. I pulled it away. Don't touch me if you don't mean it. Silence. Then, calmly, I said, she'd die in a place like that. And Brenda, oh, sweet Brenda, replied, that's dramatic. People live longer in assisted living. You know what people also do in those places? I said. They forget who they are, because no one there reminds them. She didn't answer, just walked inside. Her shoes clicked like nails on a coffin. The next day, I went to visit Maplewood. Yeah, I did. Thought maybe I was being harsh. Maybe I was losing it. Maybe Doug was right. The receptionist had fake lashes and a voice that sounded like she'd said the same 3 sentences for 20 years. We're a vibrant community of active seniors. One of the residents was sitting in the hallway, staring at the wall, mouth slightly open. No one looked at him, not even staff. A nurse walked by, stopped, looked at me and said, "Are you here to drop someone off or visit?" Like I was delivering a package. That was all I needed to hear. When I got home, Doug was sitting at my kitchen table again, like he paid rent. He had papers in his hand, brochures, legal documents, you name it. He was serious now. He was going to war. I sat across from him and asked calmly, "Doug, did you ever ask Mom what she wants?" He looked uncomfortable. "She's not in a state to—" "That's not what I asked." Silence. So I stood up. "Then I'll tell you what she wants. She wants to be home. She wants her old bed, her favorite blanket, her music, and her husband. She also deserves proper care. She deserves loyalty." Doug slammed the papers down. "Fine. If you won't do this, then I'll take legal action. I'll have the doctor assess you. You're not sleeping. You're erratic. You're not safe for her." That's when I laughed. Really laughed. Not because it was funny, because it was pathetic. Because my own son was trying to declare me mentally unfit for loving too hard. Later that night, when the house was finally quiet, I sat beside Elsie and whispered everything. Every word. Every insult. Every plan they made. She didn't respond, but one tear slipped down her cheek. That's when I knew. She heard me, and I swore, right there, under that dim yellow lamp, I wasn't going to let them take her away. Not without a fight. This is the turning point. Everything you've been waiting for, it's here. Don't leave now. You need to see what happens when this man decides to stop being polite and starts taking control. Let's make something very clear. You can only push a man so far before he stops being the nice, polite version you're comfortable controlling and becomes someone who remembers everything you ever did wrong. You know what the cruelest thing about aging is? People treat you like furniture. They talk over you. They talk about you. They plan around you. And the whole time you're sitting there thinking, you really think just because my hands shake, my brain does too? Well, I don't rattle that easy. And I'd had enough. That night, I didn't sit by Elsie's bed and cry. I sat by her bed and strategized, like a general staring at a battlefield he once built with his own hands. She didn't speak. She couldn't. But I looked her in the eyes and said, "I'm gonna make them regret underestimating me." And she blinked. Once. That was all the approval I needed. Step 1. Gather evidence. I started recording. Not just the things they said to me, but the things they said when they thought I couldn't hear. You know, those hushed little meetings in the kitchen about mental capacity, about selling the house, about how much assisted living would cost versus inheritance. Yeah, I heard every word. And now, so would everyone else. Doug came by the next day. All confidence, tucked-in polo shirt, clipboard. He walked in like a bank manager about to foreclose. "Dad," he said, "we've scheduled your appointment with Dr. Folsom. He's going to do a full assessment." "Assessment of what?" I asked, playing dumb. "Of your cognitive ability? It's just standard procedure." "Ah," I interrupted. So now love requires a psych eval. He blinked. We just want what's best for Mom. There it was again. That phrase. What's best? I leaned in, calm as a sleeping dog. Tell me, Doug, did you want what's best for Mom when you disappeared for 3 years after her stroke? Boom. Silence. He didn't expect that one, but I had it loaded. I wiped her every morning, Doug. Fed her, lifted her, listened to her scream in confusion while you were posting beach selfies with Brenda in Maui. He opened his mouth, then shut it. I kept going. You didn't want what was best for her. You want what's easiest for you. I went to see Marlene, our old neighbor. Widowed, sharp as a tack. Retired paralegal with a heart of gold and a folder of favors. I told her everything. She didn't even blink. Frank, you know if they file for medical guardianship, they'll try to take full control. I know, I said. Then you better beat them to it. I filed my own petition that day, with my doctor, my records, my attorney. I may walk slower, but I still move faster than people expect. Step 3, the blow. Doug and Brenda came back on Sunday. They brought a nurse, like I was supposed to hand Elsie over in the foyer like a UPS package. You're not fit to decide anymore, Dad, Doug said. This is for the best. I smiled. Oh, you're right, I said. It's a good thing I filed for exclusive medical decision rights 2 days ago. What? I spoke to an attorney. I have affidavits, documentation, and, recordings. Want to hear the part where you said I was too emotionally attached to function? His face dropped. Brenda turned white. I pulled out the little flash drive and dropped it on the table like a mic. You thought I was asleep. You were wrong. The nurse looked at them. I can't proceed without valid documentation. Doug tried to yell. Brenda tried to reason. But the nurse backed off. And I stood taller than I had in years. That night, 3:27 came. And for the first time in months, I slept through it. But victory comes at a cost. What happens next will test everything Frank's fought for. You've seen the retaliation. Now stay for the reckoning. Funny thing about peace, you don't notice it when it arrives. You notice it when it's missing, clawing at your walls at 3:27 a.m., night after night, like some shadow trying to remind you that something's broken. Well, that shadow didn't show up last night. And for the first time in what felt like forever, I woke up with the sun, not the silence. You'd think that finally winning the fight to keep my wife home would feel like a parade, fireworks, applause, hell, maybe even an apology or two. Nope. You know what it felt like? Heavy, quiet, real. Doug didn't call for a week. Brenda unfriended me online. That one hurt the least. But I didn't gloat. I didn't spike the football. That's not how real victory works. Real victory feels like getting your own shoes back after walking a mile barefoot. You don't celebrate. You just breathe. Elsie was sleeping peacefully when I went to her room. Still beautiful, still mine. I pulled up a chair, took her hand, and told her everything. What Doug tried to do, what I said, what I stopped. I don't know if she understood, but I think she felt it. She always could read my heart better than my words. Later that day, I got a letter. From Doug, I almost tossed it. I was still angry, not just for what he did, but for how little he seemed to understand. But I opened it anyway. It wasn't long, just 4 sentences. Dad, I was wrong. I thought I was doing what you couldn't. Turns out, you were doing what I wouldn't. I didn't see it before, but I see it now. You're stronger than I ever gave you credit for. That's the thing about pain. If you carry it right, it becomes a torch, not a weight. The next morning, Doug showed up. No clipboard, no nurse, no Brenda. Just him. Standing awkwardly at the door, holding a bag of groceries. He cooked breakfast, sat next to Elsie, held her hand, didn't say a word about institutions, capacity, or assessments, just sat there, like a son. And I swear to you, when she squeezed his fingers, he started crying. Real tears. The kind men aren't supposed to show. The kind he mocked me for years ago. But I didn't say anything. I just watched. Because the thing about justice is, it's not about making them hurt like you hurt. It's about making them see. That night, I went out to the porch again. Same chair, same moonlight. But this time, I wasn't waiting for anything. Not the next fight, not the next insult, not even the next breath. Just sitting, living. Elsie was inside, asleep. Doug was in the guest room, finally understanding what I'd known all along. And 3:27 a.m.? It came. But I didn't wake up for it. You know, people always ask what the secret to aging well is. Some say diet, some say sleep, some say money. Me, I say it's this. Fight for the people who forget how to fight for themselves. Even when you're tired, even when no one believes you, even when your own blood turns against you. Because someone has to remember what love looks like when no one else does. And if that someone's me, well, then maybe 3:27 was just the alarm clock I needed to wake the hell up.